Welcome, folks. Welcome, folks, to one of a series, roughly monthly, of online events brought to you by O-Scale Central, which is transitioning from being called O-Scale Kings to our new name. We are convened online using a Zoom platform on the 23rd of July, 2022. This is one of a series of programs, and we are reaching out to the O-Scale two-rail modeling community. Remind me before we get out of here to mention how to access past programs. They are available on YouTube, and as they used to say with the old issues of Model Railroader, they're all new until you've read them. So they're all these programs are new until you actually get the opportunity to see them. A number of them have been really neat. We had Scott Mann, who is the owner and chief executive of Sunset Third Rail, on a couple of months ago and got some real inside baseball. We've had some other really neat guests, including the guest that we're going to have today. I don't want to give away her story, but she is doing some really fantastic stuff, modeling American trains in two-rail O-Scale. We have a number of announcements, and I don't want to short circuit anybody with news today, but it is customary on these calls for us to go around the room pretty early in the program and have everyone introduce themselves. And right now, the introduction is going to be 2 sentences. Give us your name. Strike that, 3 sentences. Give us your name, give us where you're from, and give us what you model. Later on, we will have an opportunity both for questions for our prime guest, and we will have the opportunity for good and welfare. But right now, we will start by simply going around the room and having everybody introduce themselves. Here's my example. Try and follow it. I'm David Vaughn. I live in Clarksville, Maryland, and I model the Nickel Plate Road and Canandaigua Southern in 5-foot gauge. Roughly go alphabetical. If you're toward the front, feel free to chime in. If you're toward the back, wait a minute.
I'm Joe Barker. I live in Alameda, California, which is San Francisco Bay Area, and I model 3-rail and 2-rail.
Thank you.
My name is Dan Doughty. I live in Dwight, Illinois, and I model my own Richmond, Danville, and Southern.
Super.
Bud Brock, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I'm working with Rich Randall on the modules.
Terrific. That's one of the things that we're really devoting some time to and having good results.
I'm Mike Walter in Fort Worth. I model 2-rail and 3-rail also.
Thank you, Michael. Michael is a member of our board of directors and active in the Dallas area, which is going to be hosting some conventions coming up, I understand.
Yeah, we have a Southwest O-Scale meet October 14th, 15th. Everybody's welcome to come if you can make it all the way here.
Don't be bashful. Plug your show. Great. Who's next?
We've got an ad in O-Scale trains.
All right. Who's next? John McInerney, why don't you tell us who you are and all the other stuff?
Okay, I'm John McInerney. I live in Venice, Florida, and I model two-rail O scale, the 5-foot gauge, if you will.
Terrific. Eric?
Yeah, Eric Peterson, Carmel, Indiana. I model O-scale two-rail traditional O-scale and model CSX and predecessors all the way back to steam.
Great. David?
All right, David Schultz. I live in Canyon, Minnesota, which is near Duluth. I model the Northern Pacific in Proto 48.
All right. Kathy?
I'm Catherine Webble. I'm learning a whole lot more from my brother. I just moved to Swiftwater, a little closer to his business, and I model primarily structures.
Very good. John?
Oh, I am in Swiftwater, Pennsylvania also, and I model Chicago Great Western and have sort of a love for traction and keep really busy with this All Nations project.
On top of John's other work, he is the coordinator for these O-scale Central online programs, and I want to really thank him for that. And John, I know you have an invited guest, and you and he work out how you introduce him, whether he introduces himself, how it works.
Heike is my invited guest. How are you?
Yes, I'm fine, thank you. So I'm now in Tokyo, Japan, and it's 4 a.m. right now. So after the meeting, I have to go to bed to sleep. But this is a very nice opportunity for me to join this meeting.
Welcome, we're happy to have you. Thank you very much. All right, we usually start off with a series of announcements on programs, on things that are happening in O-scale, and I have several, but the guy who is the go-to guy for what's happening in O-scale is Dan Dowdy. His slogan for O-scale Resource, which is a free online publication, if there's anybody who's not aware of it, is news you can use. And so I always try and start when Dan can make it on the program by asking him what's the news we can use in two-rail O.
You know what? I don't have a lot of news you can use this time. I got roped into another job, which is editor of the NASG Dispatch, which was the S-scale national magazine. So I've been tied up with that. We have our S-scale magazine coming out this next week, but I did get my battleship gone from Scott Mann. Those finally shipped. And for yes, it's a gorgeous car, you know, for what it is. It's plastic, but the trucks are really nice. The car turned out really well. And so I'm looking forward to getting that painted. And I'm also working on one of John Kugel's cars. And unfortunately, John gave me his text number. So for the last week, every time I have a hitch in the instructions, I text him. I think he's getting sick of it. But we'll get these instructions figured out pretty soon.
Tell him he's getting free advice on how to improve his instructions. He should be grateful. He should be grateful. On the Virginian battleship Gons, I know that this run, unlike the earlier run, is in plastic. Are the Gons lettered? Or are they unpainted?
I had mine unpainted because I'm going to put it in my own road. But yes, they came in Virginia, and I think he did a C&O version too that wasn't exactly correct, but it was close enough. But yes, they were lettered for the Virginian. The trucks are plastic, but they are sprung. So I mean, it's not a bad model.
Okay. All right, and before we convened, I flagged the new line of trucks that Roger Lewis with Wasatch Models has been doing. He got the last run from the Korean manufacturers that have been supplying Wasatch for years, and he wasn't ready to do a Pullman 242 truck, which is their top equalized six-wheel truck. So I convinced him to do that, and they have arrived. He has several other types of trucks, passenger trucks, including the widely used 41N lightweight trucks. And these are in traditional O 5-foot gauge, and my trucks at least had never been done in 5-foot, although they had been done in Proto 48. They are absolutely gorgeous trucks, and if you are looking for a real showpiece pair of trucks for a showpiece model, these are your bet. I didn't realize it, but the 242 top equalized trucks were used on 25% of the Pullman heavyweight fleet, as well as a lot of railroad owned equipment. So be looking for those. They will be being advertised. There are a number of events coming up, and actually for this, John had previously put up some of the bullet points on the outline. If you can share screen again, John, we can go through that. Here are some upcoming events. I'm going to leave the third one for last and for Eric Peterson to talk about. But coming up is the St. Louis RPM meet, which is actually in Connellsville, Illinois. It's July 29 and 30. If you've never been there, it is about, 20 minutes maybe into Illinois from St. Louis. It is a very well organized event. They have a very nice modern convention center there. And I have always thought that railroad prototype modelers meets were the natural place for O-scalers to go to find not only camaraderie, but hopefully converts, because the railroad prototype modelers are as dedicated a group of rivet counters as you are ever going to find. And we all know that if you're going to count rivets, it's a lot easier to count them in O-scale because they're bigger and you can see them and you can appreciate the mass. You can go online and just Google St. Louis Railroad Prototype Modelers Meet and you will get the information. Strasburg, Pennsylvania has a show that takes place, I believe, 3 times a year. And Rich Yoder runs that show. And I commend the show to you. It's a very good, smaller show. It is going to be held on Saturday, August 6th. There are long references to firehouse train shows. Some of them are fairly primitive, but this one is very well organized. It's all O-scale 2-rail. And the fourth item is the Southern New England Model Railroad Club. They're having an open house September 24. And that is an O-scale 2-rail layout. Again, go online, Google it. And finally, we have the NMRA National, at which O-scale Central is going to have a major presence. We need your help to make it happen. But the guy who's really been carrying the ball for the Gateway 2022 O-scale presence is Eric Peterson. And I'd not only like to thank Eric very much for his spearheading this, but get from him a briefing on what's going to happen, and in particular, what the O-scale part of it is going to be. Eric.
All right, thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, obviously, the NMRA National is a week-long event in St. Louis this time. And the dates are out there, as well as the website. Lots of information out there. We're going to have a presence in two areas. First is special interest group area, and that is also the departure area for the bus tours and activities like that. And so there's going to be a lot of people going by where the Wingate Model Railroad modular layout will be on display. And then that will be Monday through Thursday and possibly part of Friday. And then the National Train Show, which is actually a separate event, but coordinated and run as part of the National Convention. And that is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We will have a presence there. We've got space, and we have a modular switching layout being put together to be part of that. And that is an opportunity for us to show what O-Scale is all about to the general public, in addition to the people that are attending the convention. Our number one need is for people that are attending the convention to let me know so we can make use of them for at least a few hours to help out where we have displays. That's our number one need at this point in time. I look at it as an opportunity to socialize with a lot of other people. And I've done this kind of thing in the past, and it's been a lot of fun. So that's the story for Gateway 2022.
Thank you. And just to put a little cap on that, the special interest group room is a large and active area, and it is in the same room from which all of the layout tours and field trips will actually take off. So people gather there, and then when the buses arrive, they load into the buses. Some of you may recall that in 2020, Model Railroader, which is not necessarily a real hotbed of O-Scale two-rail activity, had a four-part series by Tony Custer in which he researched and selectively compressed and figured out a workable track plan, and then built it in O-Scale. And in fact, he built it in Proto 48. And it was built as a 24-foot module, basically encapsulating a small Indiana town and allowing for a certain amount of operation. In a classic case of mission creep, I volunteered to bring the Wingate module to St. Louis. And I have to confess that it turned out to be a lot more work than I thought it was, because we figured out when we got into it, I actually bought the layout from Tony Custer. But when we got into it, it became very apparent that not only was the Proto 48 issue, I won't say issue, the Proto 48 aspect of it was difficult, because a lot of people, A, don't want to do Proto 48, and B, don't want to have to hand lay their track, which is what Tony did. So right now we are in the process of making Wingate 2, which is going to be in traditional O-Scale as opposed to Proto 48. It uses off-the-shelf Atlas track components, so you do not have to hand lay track in order to do it. And it uses the carpentry work of the emerging O-Scale module program. So you can actually plug in the track sections, the layout sections to the O-scale modular groups. We will be operating there, and basically everybody who's going to attend the convention will be going by our layout, presumably operating at one or more points when they're going on tour. So it's going to be, and we're literally right next to the seating area for people who are going on the tours. So people will have a real up close and personal opportunity to see two-rail O-scale. And I don't know, I assume you all have had the same kind of experience that I do, where you have a tour of your layout, or you bring a modular layout or even a model, and people who are not O-scalers look at it and they say, oh, where's the rail down the center? So we're going to try and educate people that there is a kind of O-scale that doesn't have a rail down the center. So the one disadvantage is when you go to a place like this and you commit to doing a display, you're open when the room is open, and at NMRA, we're going to need to fill about 48 hours, I think, of time. And in order to operate the layout and still be able to talk with people, to provide relief to each other, we really need two folks at the layout at the same time. The layout will, by the way, be accompanied by some literature tables, so we will be able to display literature, have our membership flyers out, and so on. But we do definitely need help. We had a good presence at the Indy Junction convention, which was also spearheaded by Eric Peterson. And Eric and I did clinics at that convention, which we're going to repeat for the O-scale, for the NMRA National. Eric, you may have some follow-up on that.
Yeah, we have, you're doing two clinics, one on John Armstrong's history and one on an introduction to O-scale, and I'm doing one on layout wiring. And so we've had good reception for all of those.
Thank you. And we need your help. If you're going to be going to NMRA National, please check in with Eric Peterson. If you're thinking about going, it's a pretty good program. It's longer than we're used to in O-scale, but there are a lot of activities. It's well organized, and I think it's going to be well executed. And bear in mind that this is the first NMRA National in 3 years. Is that right?
3 years.
Yeah.
Great.
So there should be a lot of pent-up demand there. Right. Let me inquire, John. You have talked about previewing some of the upcoming programs, and you've got a list of people. Why don't you run through where we're at and where you want to go and what help you need in terms of upcoming programs?
Okay, let me just screen share here real quick. And scroll down. I thought I had the list in here.
Yeah.
So I've talked to Mike Leahy out in California, and I believe he is a O-scale King's member. He may give us a talk on the Golden State Model Railroad Museum, Railroad Club. Fairly well known club out there. In fact, he did send me a professionally made DVD last week to look at. So he is potentially a speaker for us in upcoming O-scale Central events. another young lady from P&D Hobby, Stacy, who was part of the family that owns P&D in Michigan. Most of you know P&D from going to the conventions, and she was going to talk with her siblings about being a guest on one of our O-scale meetings here. And she said that during the transition period of closing her hobby store, but going completely online. And so that would be something she would give us a update on and answer all our questions. And then I've met another lady by the name of Catherine, who is actively involved in the Quarter Connection Club. They have a website, and these are folks that are modeling in miniatures in 1/4-inch scale. And some of their work is very, very interesting. And I've seen some of the photos that they've sent me. And Catherine has been involved in model railroading. I believe she is involved in ON3. And so she's on our agenda to get her scheduled. And so she wanted a little bit of time to work up a presentation. So that's what we have coming up. And so if you know of anybody of interest that would like to speak to us and teach us what they know, and share in their knowledge, just please contact me. I'd love to work with you.
Thank you, John. If you can take that down then. And for those of you who were on the call, there's a saying in media called, you got to feed the beast. If you're going to put on a program on a monthly or so basis, you better be able to have a regular flow of interesting people. And John has been very good at doing that. But we are always looking for, he is always looking for additional material. We do try and plan these several months in advance, at least in terms of the general shape of the program. And John would very much appreciate whatever suggestions and feedback you might have. Before we go too far, and before we get to one of the exciting parts of the program, I want to plug a couple of items. We did recently an article for the NMRA magazine on an introduction to 2-Rail O. And we now have from it was published. This is the article. Is that coming out backwards?
No, it's fine.
Okay, thank you. Anyway, this is the article, which has, I won't say it's everything you need to know about 2-Rail O, but it is a real good introduction, and it sort of lays out where the scale is right now, and provides a lot of the contact information and the websites and so on to get plugged in. And the NMRA has very graciously allowed us to reprint and distribute those articles. So not only did we get a good plug from NMRA, but they have allowed us to use the article for our purposes. It's been recast a bit to take out some of the ads that were in the magazine and to add material about O-Scale Central and what our programs are. So you can go to our website to oscalekings.org and simply look for, I've forgotten what it's called. It's either, it may even be O-Scale, it may even be O positive. but if it's not, it's called something like an MRA article. And you can download and print it out. You can use it for your own personal use. If you go to shows where you're interested in publicizing O-Scale, you can print out copies, take them and distribute them. You can use them in connection with club open houses or anything else that's there. So we have been very fortunate to be able to get some ink in an MRA magazine. They've got a 10,000 member circulation, and you can also we also then can use it for ourselves. So I encourage you to take advantage of that for any scale related item that you want. One other item, and that is just a plug. We have O-Scale Central online, and we also have the O-Scale product and service guide, which is a one-stop place to find O-Scale and a one-stop place to get news and get basic background. And I want to thank Kathy Wubble, who has been working to keep that up to date. A product and service guide is only as good as its last update, and Kathy has been very active in making that happen. So I want to thank her for it. Feel free to access the product and service guide and the introductory material, as well as a listing of upcoming events, a club directory. There are all kinds of little features there, and we want you to use them. They are free to be listed and they are free to use. There's no hidden charges. Okay, before we will have a conversation with our featured speaker and with an opportunity for questions to her. And then at the end, we will have our usual good and welfare, which is we can go around the room and get other announcements, questions, updates, anything that's coming up. But right now, I want to turn to our featured speaker, and she is Sarah Griessenböck. And I probably messed up her
No, you didn't.
name pronunciation, but in any event, Sarah is an O-Scale two-rail modeler of American prototypes, and she is a fantastic modeler and is really making some contributions to the scale online. If you follow Facebook, and at this point I'm pretty well limited to my train contacts on Facebook, but if you follow Facebook, it's pretty hard not to run into Sarah's latest project. And so what I'd like to do is to have her simply tell about herself, tell how she got into the hobby and the scale, tell how she came to be modeling American prototypes, and how she is approaching the brave new world of 3D printing and CAD drawing and design to try and really contribute. Dan Dowdy, who has been working with Sarah, may chime in at some point, but Sarah is really driving the bus on this entire project, including her website. So Sarah, thank you very much for joining us today. We're excited to hear from you.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank you all for the invitation to this illustrious circle here. I had a little bit of a hard time accepting because of English not being my mother language. But I feel it will be all right, and you will forgive me when I mess things up. So thank you so much. My name is Sarah Griessenböck, and I live in Austria. I live in the Austrian Alps, and I'm doing modeling for about 10 years now. And before that, I was just, I fell in love with O-scale by chance, by having a walk in a mall. And there in Innsbruck, is our capital city here in Tyrol, there is a mall, the only mall we have. Okay. And I went there, and I went to the newspaper section, and there was a magazine that featured Ed Rapay's first O-scale Pennsylvania Railroad layout. And I think many of you might even know the article because it was simply stunning, and we all know what Ed is up for the recent years. He's building this fabulous a huge model railroad, but the predecessor was stunning. It was interesting to see how he squeezed all the action into the space he had, and he inspired me immediately. And I knew if model railroading should one day become a hot topic for me, then it has to be O-scale. And then, then I had a lot of things going on in my life, and in the later years, then I found more time and more focus, and so I started with O-scale 5-foot 2-rail in well, about 10 years ago, and then I immediately found a lot of people extremely helpful. I think the big plus in O-scale is the people who are extremely helpful, who really share their knowledge, and who really bring things forward. And I at some point I developed a little bit of a modeling skill here and there, and the problem that I still have is that I don't have a layout room yet prepared, but it will be in the next 1 or 2 years, and then I can really start building things.
And what railroad do you model?
Okay, that's also a funny story because, when you have never been to the United States and you do some research, then of course what's coming up for us Europeans, the big stuff like the Union Pacific transcontinental route, and so it had to be the UP because it was first love at first sight, so to say. And then also when I did some research on other railroads, then I found that the Union Pacific offers you a lot of opportunities because they have so much rolling stock, different locomotives and opportunities. And also the West, for us Europeans, it has to be the West. This is the essence. And of course, later on, I sometimes said, wow, why did I jump into this? Because the Eastern railroads are also very interesting, very nice, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, beautiful landscape. But then I just decided, well, stick to what you decided in the first place. So it is Union Pacific and also the Colorado and Southern to make things a little bit more complicated.
Fantastic. You said you'd never been to the United States at the time you were first introduced to two-rail O-scale. Have you since been to the United States?
Yes, I have been once to the United States to have a fantastic trip, and it was just when COVID started, so it was very scary. I did not know if I can ever come back home, but it worked out nicely, and I was to the March meet in Chicago. And I met many very nice people there, and it is a little bit of a problem, because I cannot do everybody justice, because I am just overwhelmed with all the names and everything, and usually you just do everything online, and then everybody's there in person. So that was very interesting, and I think I messed up a lot of the names, but yeah, this is to be continued. I will plan my next visit next year to Denver, to the O-Scale National. I hope I will make it there.
Outstanding. If you went to the March meet, you probably met Brad Kowal, who was at least the titular head of the committee doing it. But on the call here, we have David Schultz, whom I affectionately refer to as the brains of the outfit. And he was the power behind the throne on that. And I'm so delighted that you had the opportunity to get over there. It was a very successful meet. I think everybody was really ready to go to a train show after having been on the shelf for 2 years.
That's right. No, how can I say? I have to go more often, which is a little bit of a problem, because I'm also a dyed-in-the-wool environmentalist, and I try not to fly a lot, which is, making no sense when you want to go to the United States. So I will have to focus on doing a lot of stuff once I fly every once in a while. So that next year I will hopefully meet more people over there.
We'll have to get you to the East Coast when you come, as well as to Denver. I actually have substantial portions of Ed Rapay's layout that was featured in I think it was either December of 1999 or January of 2000. And then we are actually a couple of hours away from Ed's present layout.
That would be my dream.
and I can get you down there. I know the folks, but we can talk about that later. But we are delighted that you may be coming back to the States to see the Denver convention. It's going to be good too. But tell us how you got into the technology end of this, and by that I'm loosely including 3D printing and CAD drawing and resin casting and all of the other stuff that you've been doing.
Yes. Well, I did buy a printer because they are not too expensive, and I have a very strong inner child that has to have everything it sees. So I had to have a printer just because it was there. And then I figured out what to do with it, and I made my first test print, and I was really blown away by the quality these resin printers can do. And then I started to think about what can I do with it, and the logical next step is to design your own stuff. And I found out that Fusion 360 by Autodesk is the program of choice for this, because it offers you professional approaches to building your own models, and it is free if you don't use it commercially. So if I would sell my parts, then I would have to license the pay license. I have to avoid that because it's really expensive. It's some $60 a month. So but on the other hand, it is such a good program. So I went into that and I designed stuff, and I started with I hope you can see that. I have to illuminate a little bit better, and the camera is here. Just a second, please.
It appears to be a tank car dome.
Yes, it is a tank car dome. And this tank car dome, this is part of a project that I started, and that's a 056 Union Pacific tank car that was used on the early streamliners to ship the fuel for them. And that model has been done only once or twice in brass, and I couldn't find it, and so I just said, well, let's try to design it. and it is some progress that I made on it, but I still wait a little bit longer until I can afford a larger build volume within my printer, because then I can print out the whole body in one piece, and that saves me so much time in sanding and making it smooth, which is a little bit of a challenge with the tank car, and it is a long one, so I am not yet there. But the most difficult part, this shape here, with the rivets, if you can, maybe you can see the rivet seam on the dome. It's very delicate, very difficult to make, and this was for me a little bit like the test print. Can it work out? And then it worked out pretty well, and then I thought, yes, that's very good. So the next thing that I did was building a intermountain box car, and it is this car here that you can see here. And what I want to point out is that I have this wire roof walk, this metal roof walk on it, and that's part by Mr. Wobble, and it's a very nice part, and I really like it, and it turned out pretty good, and I want to say thank you once again for it. And what you can see here on this car is that the Intermountain, the original Intermountain door hardware that you can see here, like the hangers are totally simplified, and also the lift bars, they're not close to what it should be. So what I did, it was designing the lock and the starter, the camel starter, and printing it out, and that was the first thing that I did. And the hardware turned out so nicely that I then decided to design the whole door for the car. So you see, it is like a snowball. You start somewhere, and then you go where you never intended to be. And now I have like this little example here. Now I have the full door here. It's equipped with Camel number 50 door hangers that are not correct for the 1937 cars, but on many wooden box cars these can be found throughout the 1930s and late 20s. So this is a very important piece of equipment. And of course, then I had the idea to provide all the different kinds of details and doors for the Intermountain kit, because the kit is extremely cheap. You can buy these for about $20, especially on auctions. It's not very expensive, and it is so nicely detailed. The plastic injection model is really perfect. I really love it. I mean, of course, you could also buy a brass car by Protocraft, which is a very good thing to support Protocraft, because they're making really cool stuff. But when you are going to have 10 or 20 of these cars, it's really expensive. So I thought it is maybe also a good thing to make use of these cars by just contributing the missing hardware. And that is, of course, I hope it's not getting too tiring for you, because when I'm talking, I'm talking. Sorry. And now here you have a superior door that I just designed and printed, and it has these Greco lift arm and the starter, and it is made in a way that you can put it into the door, and it will just snap right into it. So it is a perfect fit. Let me demonstrate that for you. Just a second. So I just put it in there, and it is just simply perfectly designed for that kind of kit. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
And you have this, two things. One, you have this on your own website, do you not?
Yes.
These projects?
That's right, yes.
Is is that something that you are able to give us the name of the website, or do you prefer to operate anonymously? There's no right answer.
No,
to this.
no. It is meant to be shared, and the website is trainkitchen.com. And there in the download section, you can find all the prints that I have made available so far, and I will make more stuff in the future. And yeah, that's my mission. So
All right, and to try and get actual prints of these models, would a modeler work through Dan? How would that happen?
Well, that's I think we have to thank Dan so much for doing that, because Dan is a very supportive man who really cares for others, and helped me a lot and helped others a lot, and I think we have to find some at some point we have to find a good way to deal with it, because I think we cannot just all come to Dan and ask him if he prints stuff for us. I mean, it's nice if he does, but I feel a little bit guilty by making him busy all the time. So maybe he wants to say something about it.
Well, I have one thing about that. If you can keep him busy enough so he stops screwing around with this S-scale stuff, all of his O-scale buddies will be happy. But Dan, you really get an opportunity both to explain and defend yourself and whap me upside of the head for criticizing your S-scale.
With pleasure. No, I don't mind printing some of the stuff. Obviously, if it gets out of hand, Sarah and I'll have to come to some kind of an agreement and see what we can do. But you know, I'm doing stuff for Ross Dando and what his projects, and I've had maybe a half a dozen people say, you know, can you print me a few of these? Can you print me a few of these? And I just go ahead, send them out, and you know, if they send me $5 for postage, fine. If they don't, that's fine. But I suspect Sarah's going to get more prolific, and parts are going to get bigger and bigger. And so we'll have to see what happens. But, you know, one of the things is these printers are getting so cheap. You know, I have an Elegoo Saturn, which is what Sarah has, which is why I got it. And then I just ordered the new Saturn. It'll be here this week finally, which is a much higher resolution version. But you can get a good 4K scanner printer for $200, $250. And so I think you're going to see a lot more people doing it themselves. You know, the hardest thing is the software. That's going to be a learning curve, but there's plenty of free software out there too to get you started designing parts. Or there's plenty of parts like Sarah's and others that have, you know, already been designed. You can simply download. So I think it's going to be the future of a lot of hobbies. Our hobby, airplane hobby, whatever. If there's something that's just not available, you're going to make it yourself, and it's extremely economical. You know, those little doors she has, I don't know how many we could print. I think I could print 6 on a platen for 80 cents, if not less than that. So I mean, the cost is just stupid cheap. But I think, yeah, more and more people are going to be getting these things and playing with them. And again, it's the way of the future. And of course, you know, I've talked before about prototyping. That's the biggest reason I bought the machine, was to do the prototyping for Glenn Guerrera and Lou at Central Locomotive to make these trucks that he's coming out with now. So there's just a lot of uses for it, and it just takes practice. It's kind of an evil art. There's some days I can go down and print. Everything comes out fine. I go back the next day and print the exact same thing, and you know, the temperature might be off a little bit. Something just went wonkers, but it's fun, and it's again, it's something that I think a lot more people are going to be getting into.
Sarah, what's the name of your website? If we want to find it, how do we? What do we type in?
Trainkitchen.com, like train and kitchen. And And I did that because I started my first YouTube videos in my kitchen, because I have a kitchen countertop that is flat and provides a lot of light there. And so I thought about a good name for it. And so it was the kitchen where the trains are spoken about. So it's Train Kitchen.
Beautiful, beautiful. And right now, Dan Dowdy is your official US agent, is that right?
That is very correct, sir.
Okay. I'm sure that folks have questions about this. I remember, by the way, I want to recall for people, our last program, we actually had Ross Dando on the program to talk about some of these very issues, since I think a lot of us see 3D printing, resin casting, CAD drawing as being the future of O-scale because of our small runs and our need for great detail. Who's got questions for Sarah?
No question, but I wanted to say thank you very much for making the files available, Sarah. I downloaded most of them in the last few days. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question?
Well, you might not have downloaded the latest file, because I just put it online today, and that is a roof for the Viking roof that you can see here for the 1937 AAR boxcar. It's printed in 2 halves, and they fit perfectly together when they're glued in place. And then you have the Viking roof on the plastic model. So yeah, there's much more stuff coming up.
Now, one of the things that's always fascinated me, and I am not a techie, and I want to use the years that I have not learning technical stuff, but doing actual construction, is the idea that if you have a part, a kit, a piece of rolling stock or whatever, and you have the software in one scale, how easy is it to translate that into other scales?
Well, I think that's that is so easy, because these programs, you just type in the right numbers and they will calculate it and translate it into the right scale. This is so easy. For example, what I do is I use a canvas. Let me see if I have anything here. No, I don't. But usually I have a canvas to put in the background of my program, and I can scale up, and that it would be, for example, a scale drawing from the car builder's encyclopedia, and I would just scan it with the computer scanner, and then have a picture of it, and that picture would translate into a canvas that will would be laid down in the background behind my drawing. And then I can just make reference measurements, and automatically the whole thing will appear in the size that I decide. So if I know what size is it in real, then I can translate it to any scale. It's very easy. It's for example, it works perfectly from O scale to HO, for example. So this is not a problem at all.
So anything that Shapeways offers in a scale like HO that you may be envious of and would like for yourself, it can be done. And I'm curious as to how some of the tooling, for example, for some of the Rapido HO scale models, I am very curious as to whether the tooling on that is basically in a software program, CAD or some other program, and if it is it scalable? Could we possibly get some of the really beautiful stuff that's out there in HO scaled into O?
Sure, I think so. I mean,
I
it
think
depends
software
on.
wise, yeah, software wise, I'm sorry, Sarah, software wise, yes.
Yes,
But then, of course, then you gotta go back and turn that back into new tooling, and that's where the rub comes in, because that tooling is gonna be $300,000-400,000. And for, if you're gonna go injection molding, and how are you gonna recover your cost in O-scale? That's the problem. And I don't think, at least the printer that I have is not strong enough to do a lot of things that we may ask for. I know a lot of guys have been making trucks, and I've played with that, and I haven't had very good success with because of brittleness, minor warping, things like that. So I mean, there are 3D printers out there that can do that in the commercial side.
if I've got software for, I don't know, an SD90, I know that if I'm Rapido and I'm doing something in HO scale, I know that I can translate that into tooling so I can make injection molded models. And I take Dan's point that you're talking 6 figures to get the tooling done. Can I take the same software and either 3D print it or make a mold, a soft mold, so I can resin cast it? And I'm not asking you for answers now, although you're welcome to give me, but it seems to me that that's one of the next frontiers, you know, is trying to make creative use of software. Anyway, just thinking.
Yeah. Then the answer is yes. Yes, they could do that. That whatever they're using for their high-end software could create an STL file, which is what we used to print with. So that could be done.
Okay, so let visions of sugar plums dance in your heads over some of those possibilities. Anybody got any more questions or comments for Sarah?
So I do have a question. When you are starting out to design or develop one of those very small parts like a latch on a door, are you in the CAD program at a 1-to-1 scale and scaling down? Or I know you said you had a canvas and you sometimes work with a drawing or a scan of a drawing and scale to the canvas. But I'm just curious as to what your favorite approach is.
Actually, I plan and design everything in a 1/48 scale. So if a door is in reality 6 foot wide, then my door is, oh, just a moment. No, this is not in, this is in millimeter, because I work, of course, in metric, but it would be 1.59 foot in O scale. So what I'm doing is I know what this is my parameter. I know what the door width is. So I work from there. And of course, when I design something completely new, then I really have to find the very first step is to find the right measurement and how long is something. And I can, once I have a number that is 100% correct, because we know how long a certain locomotive is in reality, then I have a starting point, and then I would just go back into the scale I want the drawings to be made, and I would draw it in O scale, because we when we check something, when I measure out my stuff, and the process of doing this door requires maybe 3 or 4 test prints until it really fits. So of course it is so much more helpful to work in the scale that you model.
Yeah, I find that to be true as well.
Thank you very much, Sarah. This is great, and at least for me, it's given me an awful lot of things to think about, which is one of the real fun parts of the hobby. The trainkitchen.com has got to be one of the more unusual names, as well as one of the more unusual menus. And I am just delighted that Sarah is able to join us and share what she does. So thank you very
Thank you.
much for appearing. Stay on the call if you can. If you can't, we understand. And before we go to good and welfare, this is at the end of the program. We do have several people who came on a little later, and I don't believe we're able to give our usual 3-sentence introduction. I see Jamie is here. He is a regular on the program. Jamie, why don't you unmute yourself and give us the usual 3-sentence.
Well, I'm very pleased to be considered one of the usual suspects. I live in Turner, Maine, and I model a small short line in Vermont in Proto 48.
Thank you. And I know it's not Pam Larson, but someone is masquerading as Pam Larson so that they don't have to reveal how much money they're spending on trains. Can you just say hi and tell us who you are?
Kent Larson. I'm the lessor of the railroad the lessee, and my wife, she just accommodates everything I enjoy doing, and it just cost me railroad trips across the country. Cheap enough at half the price.
Keep that woman. Keep
Definitely
that woman.
will.
Well worth it. All right, thank you. We're now at Good and Welfare. And Good and Welfare is the opportunity to ask any questions you may have missed of me or Eric or Kathy or anybody else. It's your opportunity to make announcements of things that are going on. And we are open for business. Anybody got anything they want to share?
Is this supposed to be round robin, go around the room or something?
It's anything you want in any sequence you want. So, yes.
Well, I've been doing model railroading, I guess, for the last 40 years. It's been a long time. My last project, the one I just completed, was an Alexander GG1, which was not working at all.
Wow.
Oh, it was horrible. And I purchased this thing from the Reading Society of Model Engineers. I live in Florida, and occasionally we take road trips, my wife and I. So off we went, tearing up to there, and I bought this thing off of them. And it turns out that there really wasn't that much wrong with it to start with. Somebody had over-tightened one of the wheel bearings and it knocked it out of alignment. And that was really the big thing that was wrong. But besides that, it fought me every inch of the way. I mean, these old models are sometimes, Alexander's models were, I guess, have some historical value. So the temptation was to strip it and repaint it, and I didn't do that because the inherent value in the model itself. So I put 2 new motors in it. It had 2 motors in there, these old open frame motors with the stators that are not permanent magnets, they're a coil wound, and they were dogs.
Those are the motors that make the streetlights dim when you throttle them up, right?
60 watts, 60 watts, count them. I mean, it's ridiculous. You know, the thing you draw is about 1/10 that now. So anyway, I finished it up and brought it back up to Reading a couple of weeks ago and ran it around the layout, and it ran just fine. I got 2 other projects on my bench right this minute. I don't have a layout, so I buy these old junkers and fix them up. I have an all-nation unit. It's a 482 that had been kit bashed into a 484. What was it? It was a CNO Greenbrier, as it was originally done. And I'm looking for parts for it. I can't, one of the axles is bad. And the thing is just sitting there in a big box, and I'll get around to it when I get the parts. The other thing that I'm working on is what is it? It's a KTM unit. It was a 482, the Patsy M1A was one of the early ones that was brought in from Japan. And the gearbox on that thing had been destroyed by the previous owner or somebody in the past. And they sent a very attractive model to me, but it wouldn't run, and it's just junk. So I finally got it apart. It took me a while to figure out how to get that old thing apart. It was a Max Gray unit, okay, as opposed to US Hobbies. And I have a US Hobbies gearbox that I'm going to try to fit in there. And this is tricky stuff, you know, because from what I'm able to determine, when they put together the new gearboxes, they use the spacing for the old internals from the Max Gray era. They didn't change that. So it turns out that the axle gear fits in the new gearbox. Can you imagine? I mean, that's the first place you would look for trouble. Now, of course, they switched everything to metric, and the original stuff was all English system. And I wish they hadn't messed around with that. I mean, really, come on, guys. Make it easy on us people who like to play around with repairing these old machines. It's a beautiful mechanism. I mean, really, it's one of these things that if I didn't have to touch it, I wouldn't mess with it. But the gearbox, like I said, it was all bent up. Pieces were missing. The spur gear was not there. You know, come on. They had no business of selling that, in my opinion, other than to find somebody who would, repair it, which is what I do.
Neat. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Anybody else got stories that they want to share, or questions they want to ask, or announcements you want to make?
Well, I'm sorry I missed the first half hour of this. I was hoping Dan would stick around. I know he was involved with Central Locomotive Works with the new Type B trucks, and forgive me if that was talked about.
It was not, other than announced.
All right, yeah. Lou says that he has put together an AAR Type B truck, which is the Alco equivalent, if you will, of the Blombergs that P&D puts out. And I'm really looking forward to that. I have 3 Weaver RS3s on my bench in various stages of assembly, waiting for things. And some of the stuff I've been looking forward to are these new trucks. So that's out there. And Lou says he's going to do an AAR Type A, a switcher truck, later this year. Also something to be looking forward to.
I believe you'll find an announcement on that in the upcoming O-Scale resource. But yeah, I've talked with Glenn Guerra, who did a lot of the patterns for that, and it is going to be a very pretty truck. And Weaver was what it was, is what it is, but there's no question but what they could use a little upgrading. Anybody else got? Go ahead.
I was just going to say that part of this process involves me learning some CAD work and acquiring a 3D printer, because the locomotives that I'm doing, I need parts that I simply can't get anywhere. Fairly simple stuff that could be scratch built, but a resin printer is definitely in the very near future for me.
Excellent. Anybody else?
Yeah, David, I know you asked me and maybe Eric did about the All Nations power truck and transmission. And when I talked to Stacy at P&D, of course, everybody here probably knew Pat when he came to the shows. I was asking Stacy about their Blomberg truck and she said they've been on order. And while I was talking to her, she said they just came in, we can send you one. And so we received the truck. I hope you can see it. And we tested to see if our transmissions and our axles would fit in the P&D side frames, and lo and behold, they fit beautifully. And with our tower drive, there's only a small modification.
Could you hold it a little bit higher, just?
Yeah.
Ah, there it is.
Yeah, and so we're going to come out with the tower drive and the regular transmissions and all the spare parts so that these will be serviceable transmissions. In other words, you'll be able to take them apart and put them together and service them. And so we thought you would like to know that. So within the coming weeks, as we get our machine parts in for these transmissions, they'll be available.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I assume that you have made Dan aware of that, so it'll be included in his next new products and announcements, right?
Well, I will. It's just that we just got this stuff tested this week. So I didn't want to really say, hey, yeah, they work without having done some testing on them. You know, and the axles fit into the journals. There was like only one journal on this one truck that just needed to be polished up a little bit, but otherwise it was a perfect sizing for these axles.
Great.
I will let Dan know.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else got anything they need to share? Eric.
Yeah, I think we ought to also point out, we have a lot of things going in O-Scale Central now between the coupler and the drawbar publications, our exposure that we're doing out to conventions and activities. And but one of the important things is for the continuation of the organization and advancing the things is the people in the leadership roles. And David Vaughn has applied for the job of past president. And so we need a nomination for president. We need a nomination for secretary. We have some good board members, but we're always looking for additional people that are willing to be on the board and contribute by working on a particular part of the organization's operation. And it's a fun group. I'm enjoying it. I am not going to run for president, even though I've been putting a lot of time in on this. But please consider being part of the organization. As an example, we need a person to really run and upgrade our membership operation so that memberships are handled promptly and we get the information out and get it posted. So please consider working with us.
Thank you. And you can talk to anybody, but probably the best guy to talk to is Eric Peterson. Eric, why don't you give us your email?
It's very simple, ericgpet@gmail.com, but it's also available on the website. There is an access link that will send me an email at my email address. So glad to help out. And Bruce Blackwood is our official nomination committee chairman as the immediate past president. So we've come a long way in the past 4 years, and it's a turning point for us, I think. Are we going to keep going with many ambitious ideas that will really help out the hobby? And we need talent and some effort. It's not heavy jobs, but they're very doable. And it's most of all, the most important thing is it's fun.
Thank you. Eric mentioned the coupler and the drawbar. you all should be getting the coupler, which is the organization's quarterly journal. And this one came out July 15. And if you are an O Scale Kings member with your dues paid, you should be receiving this electronically. If you didn't, get back to secretary@oscalekings.com and let us know. We are, for the same reason, we're looking for program material for the online program. We're looking for articles for the coupler. I think the rescue of that Alexander GG1 would be a prime candidate for an article like that. So John, I encourage you to reach out. Al Askerberg has done a really good job. So this one is quarterly and is in a journal format with magazine type articles. And then on the months that we are not publishing the coupler, we have a more newsletter type publication called the Drawbar, and it'll come out on the 15th of the month in August.
David?
Yes, sir.
I did write an article about that GG1. It was published in O Scale Trains, and I updated it and sent the update in, and I haven't seen anything from them since then. Which was
Terrific. Well, we're not trying to be in competition with those scale trains. We know our place, and it's not to try and replace them. So that's good. I'm glad. I think now that you mention it, I think I remember it. But
okay,
that's good. The other thing I want to do is, if you missed part of the program and want to see it, if you want to see it again, if you've got friends who would want to see it. We do have, let's see. Can everybody see and take down or photograph or whatever? John, how do I do this? I am so anti-technology that I can't do it. How's the best way to get these links to people on the call?
Well, the links were unlisted on YouTube and intended to go to the O Scale Kings members. And
okay,
so
will this go to them? Will this be going to the O Scale Kings members?
they should have gotten it in the emails that Dan sent out to pre-announce this particular O Scale Central event.
Okay. Has anybody gotten those? Has anybody looked for them? Do we have any feedback? I see Jamie's and Mike are shaking their heads. Eric is shaking his. Okay, so apparently this went out. So if you missed it, if you missed the last month's is up there too. And by all means, go ahead and look it up, pass the word around. It is my hope at some point that we will take this show on the road, and that is to go beyond O Scale Kings members and reach out to the larger O Scale community. But frankly, O Scale Kings has not been doing very well over the longer haul in terms of providing benefits to our members. And we want to start small, and we want to start by rewarding the people who have participated with us by giving us their dues money. So at some point, I would like these programs to be broadcast, but right now we're going to stick with making this an O Scale Kings members forum. Is there anything else we need to talk about? We have not at this point, I don't think, help me out, John, set a date for the next O Scale Central online. You're shaking your head. Yes, maybe we do have. No, we have not. Okay.
Yeah, because last time you were talking about maybe taking a month break because of the NRA convention coming up. There's a lot going on. So possibly September would be a better.
Yeah. I think we will not do anything in August. It tends to have lower participation because people are out and about and doing things. But we will get the word out to our members, including you all, as to when the next one's going to be. My guess is sometime toward the middle of September. Okay, last call. Is there anybody that needs to ask us, tell us? John, do you have any words of wisdom in terms of the format?
I do not, and I thank you for our attendance from our guest in Tokyo, and of course, Sarah, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you all. And by the way, I want to brag. We are very much into affirmative action. Not only do we have Sarah as our honored guest on this call, but two of our board of directors members are women, Catherine Webble and
Michelle.
Yes. So we are in Michelle Kempema. We are on the forefront of making sure that women modelers are represented.
She may have not been able to show up today because the Union Pacific Big Boy is going to be rolling, I think, next week. And the first stop is in Greeley, where her museum is. So I'm sure she's going to be on the platform during that stopover.
Right, and just a little tickler on next year's Denver O-Scale National, and that is Michelle Kempema is the executive director of the Colorado Model Railroad Museum, which is a spectacular place to go. It's HO scale, nobody's perfect, but it's an absolutely spectacular place to go. And she also is very tight with the guy who runs the Union Pacific Steam program. So Ed, can't remember Ed's last name.
Dickens.
Yes, thank you. So we are all looking forward to that. If there's nothing else, then I will simply say I really appreciate your attendance and participation. Sarah, if you can stay on the call just for a minute, I have a couple of things I want to ask you and tell you. But otherwise, thank you all very much for participating, and the meeting is concluded. Thank you. And Bob, at some point, you and I need to talk. Give me a call. Not Bob, Eric.
Yep, I'm to hang.
Okay, thank you.